Since I was young, I was obsessed with making money. Mostly because I was a skinny guy who just couldn't get girls. That was so motivating that at 31 years old, I became one of the youngest managing directors at BlackRock. And at 35, I made $2.3 million in a single year and then semi-retired. I still work, about 30 hours a week, but surf, make silly TikTok videos, lift weights, and I'm even learning how to make techno music. Someone would say that I'm living the life of a dilettante, someone who cultivates an area of interest, such as the arts, without real commitment or knowledge. In this video, I'll discuss what work looks like when you opt out of a traditional career track. I'll cover pursuing long-term activities that have a lot of optionality, my high performer anxiety over leisure, and the importance of having a coherent narrative about your life. So let's begin with what a typical dilettante day looks like. I wake up at about 7 a.m. every morning without an alarm. I'm so lucky that I have not set an alarm in 10 years now. It's been my 10-year anniversary of leaving Wall Street. So a lot of these milestones are really starting to hit hard. 10 years without an alarm being one of them, 10 years without a regular income being another one. So I wake up without an alarm at 7 a.m. and usually I've slept from about 10:30 p.m. the preceding night. So what is that? That's 8.5 hours, which is delicious. It's delicious. I was a 6 hour a night sleeper for 15 years. 8.5 hours is absolutely God's gift. And I protect that fiercely. In fact, that's why I've been drinking a lot less just to protect those 8.5 hours of sleep, which is it's much harder to sleep that much when you have two drinks. I haven't had a lot of skinny margaritas these days. So I wake up at 7 and my eldest daughter who's 10, is usually bustling around the house. She's very high executive function, very organized. She makes her own breakfast, packs her own lunch. Sometimes she's wrapping up her homework. And so she's just off doing her thing. And the two, Lisa, my wife, and my 7-year-old are still sleeping. I will meditate for about 20 minutes. So from 7 to 7:20, I'll meditate. It's one of two meditations each day. This meditation is typically what is called a noting feeling states. So I constantly scan my body and I note different physical sensations and I try to see if they are connected to an emotion. And another side note is usually these emotions, they are connected. They actually tend to be very sad. They're usually sadness, fear, or worry, right? And so they tend to be kind of negative or uncomfortable emotions. So is 20 minutes of meditation every day a dilettantish, an activity of a dilettante? I don't think so, because I have cultivated an area of interest, meditation, for 10 years, and I'm pretty religious about it. And so there's a commitment and there's a true knowledge. Meditation has been a gateway to understanding myself. Next up, it's the whole dog and pony show of getting the girls ready for school. I think that takes about 40 minutes. I think that would not qualify as a category. There's no accumulation of knowledge. There's a commitment, but I don't think when people use the word dilettante, they're thinking about how you raise your kids. But again, it's an activity that I'm pretty immersed in and very, very present. Walk my youngest daughter to school every day with my wife, Lisa. Once the girls go to school, it's about 8:30. I'll send off a few emails. We won't comment on the dilettante nature of that. And then I'll go surf. And I will surf for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on the conditions of the waves. Now, typically when I think of dilettante, I do associate it with the arts, right? And so it's kind of, people who are consuming information without action. So my surfing activity is very high commitment. I don't spend a lot of time reading and learning about surfing. It's just something that I do. So that would not fall into the category of dilettante. But as I'm saying these things, I want to raise another point, because I think that when someone might say, are you a dilettante? Then there's this kind of what I hear too is, are you living a life of leisure? So it's actually a little bit different than the dictionary definition.
Hey, quick time out. If you're watching this video, you're probably someone who thinks deeply and intentionally about your career, about your life, and about your relationships. But sometimes you might find yourself in a place feeling stuck, unmotivated, or just rudderless. If that's you, we have a coaching program for people looking to make a bold pivot and rediscover their aliveness. Just check out radreads.co/coaching. Now back to the video.
Are you living a life of leisure? So if you meditate, take your kids to school, and then go surf, well, that sounds like a life of leisure to me. And if that's what, if the two are the same thing, sign me the fuck up. But so there is this kind of assumption that you're living a life of leisure. And I have been living a life of leisure since I was 35. Or not, I wouldn't say a life of leisure, with a heavy dose of leisure. But I think there's actually another point that's buried in there. And so we'll kind of use 3 criteria going forward: dilettante, consumption of knowledge, cultivation of knowledge without action. Life leisure, is this leisure? And then the third is atelic or telic. Some of you have taken some of my courses or been coached by me, radreads.co/coaching, know that I talk about this framework often. And so a telic activity is what we're used to doing. It's an activity that has an outcome, a desirable outcome, right? So you might, you eat to be full, typically. You sleep to, most sleep might not be a great one. You learn a new skill to make more money. That's a classic one. You might listen to a podcast to accumulate knowledge, right? Maybe so you can make more money. So those are telic activities that have a goal in them. Atelic activities are activities where there's no end goal. So going hiking. Now you might say, I get exercise when I go hiking. Fair enough. But most people aren't going hiking with the purpose of getting exercise. The exercise is a byproduct, which is nice. But even if you couldn't get fit from hiking, I suspect most hikers would still hike, right? Hanging out with friends, there's no benefit, right? I mean, you have the love and the companionship, but there's no outcome, so to speak, of a hang, or maybe listening to music. Some people might listen to music to become more cultured. They're like, oh, I want to be smart in a room. But most people listen to music because it's fucking awesome to listen to music, right? So those are the 3 categories. So as I continue to go through the day, we will look at these activities. So after surfing, I come back and I typically write for 2 to 2.5 hours. And some of you know that I've decided that I'm going to write a book, and I'm looking to write a memoir that is around that probably anchors around the theme of leaving, like this big career pivot, and then all the peripheral activities around that, or influences and thoughts and fears and dreams. So discussing ambition, discussing fatherhood, discussing money, discussing legacy, discussing marriage, discussing fear of death, but around it told in a memoir like fashion, right? So it's very much this kind of, there's a saying often, it's like show, don't tell, right? Don't tell me how to think about your fear of death. Show me how you process your fear of death. And then as a reader, I will learn from that. So that's the memoir that I'm working on. And I don't know what route I'm going to take. Am I going to get it traditionally published, or am I going to self-publish it? I really don't know. And we'll tie this into the TLEC activities, but I just genuinely love doing it. You all see these podcasts, these recordings You know my commitment to these topics. You know how I love sharing them with you, inviting you into my journey so that we can do this together and you can learn from me and I can learn from you. And that's what I want this book to be. There's an interesting thing about the book, and I'll tie this to dilettante and telic and leisure. This interesting thing about a book is that there's kind of two paths. It's kind of buy versus rent of the creative class. And in one path, there's traditional publishing, which is the way I would view it is kind of like going to an Ivy League school, right? It's very high status. There's a bunch of hoops you have to jump through. It's very competitive. It might not always lead to the best outcome, but it's like a high status that has a lot of downstream benefits, right? Like going to an Ivy League has a lot of downstream benefits. Then there's a self-published route, which is much more like the indie hacker, the contrarian play, which is, I'm doing this on my own terms. Some people do it because they want to control the economics. Some people want to do it because they want to control the creative process. They want to own it more. And some people do it because they don't want to just fucking play the game of, getting a book deal, which is kind of like applying to college, right? It can take a lot of time. And then you have a boss, right? The publisher owns your book. And so if they say jump, you might have to say how high. So there's this tension there. And I personally don't know which direction I'm going to go. I feel right now more creatively pulled. So I just want to write as much as I can, but I also have a commercial instinct. And look, a traditionally published book would get my ideas, which I believe are valuable. And I'm going to make this book good, into as many hands as possible. But again, I don't want to go to an Ivy League just because everyone says you got to go to an Ivy League, right? I'm being very disciplined about that, trying to really be self-aware that I don't get pulled, because I have the tendency to chase those things. I have status chasing, clout chasing tendencies. And as I get older, I really would like to slow those down a bit. So is that a dilettante activity? Absolutely not. Because let me tell you, writing every day for 2 hours, I've been doing it for about 2 months, is, whoo, that ain't no joke, friends. That is no motherfucking joke. That is very, 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 very difficult. It's very hard to do anything after those 2 hours. Those are by far your best 2 hours of the day. It can get extremely frustrating when you're like, things aren't connecting for you. And there's a result, but there's no, like, the goal seems so far away. Everyone says, writing a book can take, anywhere from 6 months if you drop everything, to 4 or 5 years if it's just you're trying to do a lot of things or it's not really coming out of you. So it's definitely not a dilettante activity. However, it's not really a money-making activity either. And so for the amount of hours, it's a very bad return on time activity, or maybe high option, right? I mean, if you're James Clear and you sell 4 million books of Atomic Habits, then yeah, it's a game changer for you. Morgan Housel, Psychology of Money, game changer for him. But that's not motivating me. I'm not trying to write a New York Times bestseller. If it happens, fuck yeah, I'd be so proud. But I'm not starting here. I'm working backwards from that goal. Is it a life of leisure? I mean, some people might view that, but again, I think we've established here that it's not for the faint-hearted to make that level of commitment. And is it telic? Is there an outcome that matters, or is the outcome not the goal, right? The pursuit. And yes, of course, it's telic. I want people to read it. I want the benefits of it, but at the same time, I want to create it for me. There's this very specific way that I want to write this book. It's the byproduct of 10 years of writing. And so there's a very specific way I want to write it. And I want to do it for me. I want to see it all on the page. So more to come there. And if anyone wants to talk about this book or exchange some messages, please comment, shoot me an email. Your perspective really matters in this. So after I write the book, I'm usually do my writing session. I'm usually done at about 12:30, and from about 12:30 to 3:30, I do work. That's usually when I have my coaching sessions, either with existing clients or pitching new business. radreads.co/coaching, and I'll do some networking, some business development. I'll work on, some of the more tactical things related to RadReads. I'll do some of the social media. I've been really focused and having an amazing time on TikTok, meeting some incredible people. I've actually not completely, but I've really abandoned Twitter, and have focused most of my efforts on TikTok. And God, I mean, the number of frustrated managing directors at Wall Street firms that are on TikTok watching my videos, sending me DMs. It's not just Gen Zs shaking their asses. I promise you that. So those activities are definitely not dilettante. The coaching makes me money. The business development is in service of making money, but I take tremendous pride in my coaching. I think my coaching approach is its own special little snowflake. It's a unique art in my mind, and the way I've designed it. I know that some of my coaching current and alums are watching this, so yeah, I have an incredible relationship with them after the fact. Most of them continue to be friends, and so there is this it's more than just making money. So but coaching is not a dilettante activity. Is it a life of leisure? Maybe semi, but not really. And is it telic or atelic? It's telic, right? It's in pursuit of a goal, but there's a lot of joy in the process. What about social media and TikTok and YouTube and the podcast? Is that dilettante? No, because there's a commitment, right? There's real action there. Is it a life of leisure? Debatable. It's hard work, definitely, but I love it, and it doesn't feel. It feels like play. Like I'm giggling as I make this video for y'all, and so, and is it telic? More telic, like it's outcome oriented, but at the same time, I often think that if you just deleted, if you stamped out my presence on the internet, if you obliterated if you Googled Khe Hy and some fucking cat showed up and that was it, I'd be bummed. 10 years plus of work went into that. But at the same time, I've loved 98% of it, 95. The 5% I didn't like was the heavy marketing around the productivity course. It was great. It was a great ride. And I would just go, I don't know, maybe I would become a math teacher or go, start another career as a financial advisor, something different, right? I don't know. But so there is some element of it that is for the act itself. So after that part, that's probably the closest thing that comes to work, that plus the book. So that's 12. So the book starts at 10, and this ends at 3. So it's about 5 hours of work. It's about my typical work day. But as you see, a lot of the stuff leads into that. So at about 3:30, a few things happen. One is I will either go to the gym, and I've been doing some heavy lifting, just a little bit of showing off here. I'm 45 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life, and even from a lifting perspective. And so I am on deadlifts. I'm close to 300 pound, 1 rep max. I weigh 150 pounds, 155. On bench, I'm close to 235, 1 rep max. And on squat, probably 275, 1 rep max. And so I lift twice a week. Dilettante, no, definitely serious commitment. Life of leisure, probably, but I don't know that many 45-year-olds that are committed to gaining strength, as a mostly for health reasons, but also I just enjoy the challenge of having, 275 pounds on your back, being like, fuck, am I going to make this rep? And then TLIC and ATLIC, definitely more TLIC. It's more, there's a goal to it, but I love going to my gym. There's a bunch of gym rats. So it's actually just like a bunch of middle-aged dads there, but they kind of geek out. They take things really seriously. Lots and lots and lots of dad jokes and, like Rage Against the Machine playing. So that is that part of the day. Now, if I don't go to lift, the alternative activity that I've started to do is I have been making music. And so I've been learning to make music. I thought I wanted to do hip hop, but I'm actually gravitating more towards house music and techno. I was a big progressive house kid in the 2000s. So the Twilo era for my New York City peeps, the John Sasha and John Digweed era, Danny Tenaglia era, Carl Cox a little bit less, but that era, Paul Van Dyke, Paul Oakenfold, definitely dating myself with some of these artists. But so I've always had this desire to learn how to make music. I think also music producers in my mind are these like really high status gods. I think of, like Kanye before he went crazy, Pharrell, who's someone I deeply I just think he's so fucking cool. And so I think they hold this like unique place and status for me. But at the same time, I'm fucking 45 years old, right? Starting from ground zero. I know I played the violin like a good Asian boy for 11 years. So I know how to play the violin. I have an understanding of music at a very, very, very high level. So I understand music, but it was one of these things where I was like, am I going to do this or am I going to talk about doing this? And at some point, and I think I would encourage you, like, I think we all have these things that we're like, yeah, like one day I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn how to play tennis, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to, and then always come up with excuses that we're not going to do them. Usually it's time. I don't have the time excuse, but then it's usually some kind of weird status shame things. Like, I can't be a 45-year-old beginner making EDM music with a SoundCloud account. What the fuck? And so I wanted to actually share the music thing with y'all because it really incites some strange feelings in me. Okay. So number one is it's really hard to suck at something at 45 years old. At 45 years old, you're either gotten good enough at the things that you do. Maybe it's hobbies, definitely your work. And if you suck at something, you just choose not to do it, right? That's the first thing. And so to like voluntarily say to yourself, I want to suck at something. And if you think about that, that happened to me 10 years ago as a writer. I'm a computer science major. I analyze quantitative hedge funds. I'm a math guy. I'm not a writer. I don't identify as a writer, believe it or not, to this day. And I just fucking told you I'm writing a memoir. So it's just funny. I do think it's a strength of mine that I'm willing to suck at things. And I think it just keeps life just so fucking fresh and fun. I'm swearing a lot today. Usually when I swear, if I swear a medium amount, it means I'm very excited. If I swear a lot, I'm trying too hard. And if I don't swear at all, I'm bored. I'm like a low energy. What was it? Low energy Jeb Bush. So I think I'm swearing just the right amount of time. I'm pretty amped about this. Okay, so the first thing about music is you do something that you suck at for the first time in a long time. The second thing is, this is for the productivity side of me, is that it's a horrible return on time. So I compare music to, it's a little bit like long runs or training for a marathon, right? So if you train for a marathon, you might have an 18-mile run to do. But the whole point of the 18-mile run is like, so your body gets used to the last 5 miles, maybe mile 13 to 18, where you start to hit the wall and the lactic acid really builds up and all that. But you have to run the first 13 to get to the last 5. And music has a bit of that. It has this kind of like very slow warm up period. I have produced 7 songs. I'll put them in the show notes, and they suck. Actually, two are pretty good. Slow Burn is one song. That's a hip hop beat, is pretty good. And FAFO, Fuck Around and Find Out, is my first house song, and it's actually really good. Even my daughter, who's the hardest critic, tells me that it's good. So, but the 1 minute song takes about 7 to 10 hours of work. Think about that. Think about, I mean, my work day is 6 hours. So 2 work days for a 1 minute song that's not even that good. Now, here's the other catch about the music is that the third point is probably the hardest. And this might actually be why I stopped. Not reason 1 or reason 2, but reason 3 might be why I stopped, is that there's no validation. Right? So you work 10 hours for this 1 minute song. And I have a few friends, shout out Matt Ting, shout out Lawrence, shout out Paul Millard, shout out Ben, shout out my music teacher, Kellen, who will then say like, oh, I like the drums on, minute, 13 seconds in. It's literally the way I love these friends. I'm so glad you do this for me, but it's the way that when your kid brings in, like a 5-year-old brings in a drawing, like, oh, that's such a cute bird you did. And in your head, you're like, that doesn't even look like a fucking bird. Know what I mean? So my friends do that for me. And, a few people will watch it on SoundCloud. And that's it. And here's the crazy thing. So I worked in Wall Street. I have a deep-seated fear of not being seen by others. And so I used my Wall Street career to get seen because of like skill, status, and money and traditional status. And then I left, but then I did something really sneaky, is I used the internet to get seen. And now I've gotten to the point where I can go make a TikTok on leaving Wall Street, and all these people will be like, wow, your life is so cool. Thank you for doing this. You're so inspiring. And I'm so grateful. And I love that. I love that interaction. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that there is a sneaky amount there's a dopamine hit that comes from that validation. And because social media is 24/7 and digital, like I can basically manufacture that dopamine for myself. It's very cheap dopamine, right? It's like the old English of dopamine, not the Jack Daniels of dopamine, Johnny Walker Blue of dopamine, but I can manufacture that dopamine. And with music, I can't. And there's no end in sight, right? Because music is definitely one of those 10,000 hours things. So, 10,000 hours, I don't know, that's 10 years, right? I'll be 55 years old when maybe I'll have something to show for that, a music person might validate me with. So just that, I actually think that's the thing that might make me stop. I'm really testing myself. But when I vibe on something, so surfing, writing, and I think music, I'm in it. Like I think that's where my self-awareness kicks in. And then I'm like, no, I really like this thing amidst all these other frustrations. And I like these long game activities. So is making music a dilettante activity? I guess it would be if you were watching a lot of videos, but not actually starting. But I am doing it regularly. And I even have a teacher. Is it a life of leisure activity? Absolutely. Because there's no plan on making money. Is it TLC? Is there a goal or no? That's the interesting thing. It's like, it's really for me, because I'm such a beginner. There can't be a goal. The goal's so far away, 10 years. So it's an interesting one. All right. After that, then I will hang out with my family. Again, we've already established family. We're getting around like 5 o'clock, 5 to 7, hang out with family. I'll usually watch one show. Right now I'm rewatching The Sopranos. Is that a dilettante? No. Life of leisure? Yes. TLC? No, AT, like just the pure joy of rewatching The Sopranos. Sopranos age as well. The funny thing about The Sopranos is that when I watched in my 20s, I just wanted to see people get fucking killed. Um, and now the Dr. Melfi scenes and the Carmela Tony scenes and Tony and his mom, I'm like, God damn, the character development there is you see, you know, when you watch The Sopranos, if you were around the same age, you were like Meadow Sopranos age, like a college kid. You watch it now, you're Tony's age, maybe a little bit younger. And just that shift of frame is powerful. All right. We get to the end. We're getting to the end of the day. I'll meditate. Another last time, the evening meditation tends to be like a very love-centric, heart-centric meditation. So metta, either learning to share love, like direct love towards others, or to receive love for myself. So why was I triggered when this friend said that he didn't even direct it at me, but I heard, you know, oh, I'm living a dilettantish life. And I think it's a few things. One is that a lot of my activities now are not moving towards like a defined end goal, right? So like being a good dad, like obviously there's a goal there, but it's like no end goal. Music, even the book, it's like so far away. Coaching, yes. A spiritual practice, hard to know. So there's not a lot of goals there. So it's kind of hard to measure if you're doing it well. But at the same time, like, dude, I'm a good surfer now, right? So I can lift 300. Oh, I can almost deadlift 300 pounds, right? So I am there. I don't have a goal. They're not goals, but when I reflect on them, I'm like, wow, like you're stronger than you are today than when you were 21 years old. The second thing, and I think this is probably what bugs me the most, but I'm okay with it, is there's no coherence to anything. There's no like, it doesn't unify into this like grand thing, you know. And which is why entrepreneurship, you're going to be a CEO of this, or there's no like unifying theme. And I used to really beat myself up a lot about that. I'm like, what are you doing, Khe? You just have this like patchwork of projects and they don't talk to, you know, your fucking brand is called RadReads, but it's just a newsletter, right? It's so much more. And anyway, I'm a little bit hard on myself that there's no coherence. I look at someone like Arthur Brooks, I'm like, strength to strength, and then he talks about all the topics in his talks, and his Instagram channel is all about that. But then I'm like, do I really want to be Arthur Brooks? Like, do I want everything to revolve around that? Like, I don't know. No one would be interested if Arthur Brooks announced that he was learning to make music. But then again, you probably aren't either if you hear that I am. But I think this lack of narrative coherence I find disturbing. And I think it's because it's like a projection thing. You want other people to be like, oh, cool, you're building this X towards Y. And I think that's when I was triggered by that dilettante comment. I think that's what hurt me. My shadow, so to speak, was I wasn't building something to move towards, to coherent, at least. And however, though, the counterbalance of that is that I truly, 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 truly feel like I am very aligned. Right? I'm very. One of my coaches said, she's like, you are living in authentic exploration. Right? Authentic exploration. Wow, what a beautiful phrase and concept. And I do feel like I'm authentically pursuing these things, not because someone says I think I resisted writing a book for a while because everyone's like, you need to write a book because then you get the speaker circuit and then I got all these coaching clients. I'm like, cool. If those things happen, hell yeah. But like, I'm not motivated by that. I want to write the best book that I'm fucking proud of. Right. And so I feel very much in alignment doing that authentic exploration. And you know, tapping on creativity is a big part of it. Just being around people, like my coaching clients are amazing. The different groups that I run are amazing. I see my friends a lot. I text and stay in touch with them a lot. I have one friend in Manhattan Beach. We go for a walk together every week. So I think that that's important. And obviously family stuff, health stuff, and spiritual practice. So I very much feel like I'm in alignment, and I'm not, there's this thing is like, stop shoulding on yourself, right? When people say you should do this, I don't feel like I'm shoulding on myself at all. And I'm a big self shouldder, right? I care a lot. I used to, not as much anymore, but I definitely care a lot about what people think about me. And I've definitely like, I could see the grip of that releasing a little bit. And then lastly, the quality of your life is measured by the quality of your question. So is Khe dilettante? Maybe the question is better framed, like, or are you a dilettante? I think the question is like, why am I here? Like here on this earth, right? And I think that's where you clarify the values. And once you clarify the values, creativity, spiritual practice, peace of mind, loving others, my family, my friends, my community, that's like, so am I a dilettante is actually the wrong question. And maybe the right question for you to ask yourself too is, why am I here? And with that, I love you all.